Right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Golden Sky. I'm Tom, and today it is Thursday, July 17th, 2025. If you're joining me here on YouTube, thank you very much. Please do drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. If you join in via podcast, 5-star ratings and reviews would be much appreciated. I do have my dog with me here. He's on the bed, you can't see him, but he is there. So if you spot something moving around, that's what that is. He might make an appearance, who knows. Should we get into things then? Should we start chatting about some football? Because we've got a lot to get into here, because it's been a crazy couple of days for Liverpool. When I did the last video on Monday, recapping the Preston game, things were pretty quiet on the transfer front, and since then, it's been anything but that. It's gone full mayhem mode with the transfers. We even had a bid for Luis Diaz that we rejected, an official bid. Apparently he wants to leave, but we're not even going to get into that today. That's not the focus of today's episode, because the focus of today's episode, and hopefully why you click the video, is to learn all about the Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike saga. This is definitely a saga. We're definitely calling this one a saga. Although at this point it looks like it is semi, or maybe more than semi, revised or resolved. It's probably a better word, because it looks like Ekitike is going to be joining Liverpool. That's how the transfer looks at the minute. So let's first today just sort of recap the situation of what's happened and explain it so that anyone who isn't, like me, a total sort of transfer psychopath, just sat there all day, just refresh all day long on the news, reading every different journalist's columns under the sun. Like, we have to know everything here if you're like me, but for those of you who aren't like that and are normal, here's the situation, or how it's been anyway. So I think it was Tuesday now, the news broke that Liverpool had actually made an approach to Newcastle for Alexander Isak. And if you had live footage of me when that news broke, you'd have seen my skull fall off of my neck and roll out of my house, down the road, just to the bottom of the road, where it just nicely settled, and I had to go retrieve it from to put it back on to do this podcast, because I couldn't believe it. We might have signed, or we might have been signing Alexander Isak in that moment. And I think that was the situation the whole summer, is we've known, clearly we want Isak. He was a clear target for us if the deal was possible. So we approached was the word that everybody was using, approached Newcastle, asking if he's available. Obviously, Newcastle's stance was, and always has been throughout the summer, that he is not for sale. No matter what the conditions, he is not for sale, and he will not leave St James's this summer. Which is fair enough from Newcastle. He's their star player. They have no... they don't have to sell. Like, I understand that. But their stance was no. Okay. We also knew earlier this week that Newcastle had made a bid for Hugo Ekitike, which was rejected by Frankfurt. So they bid for him. They've wanted him before in the past. He's rejected them twice in the past, a few years back, when he was a bit younger. And Hugo Ekitike is a name that has kind of followed Liverpool around a little bit here and there. So that was interesting for us as well, because Newcastle were suddenly interested in him. He costs a lot of money. People were saying, well, it must mean that Isak's going to leave, right? But then there was all this bullshit reporting that Newcastle were going to play 4-4-2. No, they're not going to play 4-4-2. So there was a whole situation there. But then Liverpool came in and made our approach for Isak, and basically said, if we can't sign Isak, we want Ekitike as well. So us and Newcastle now both want Ekitike, okay, provided that we couldn't get Isak. Ekitike himself, from the player's side, wants Liverpool. Okay, we know that now for sure, and that seemed that way all that time, was that he would choose us over Newcastle. Because, why wouldn't you? Let's be real. Why would you not? So, for Isak to sign for us, the only way that was ever going to be possible was for him to push for the move. That was the only way. We needed him to put in a transfer request. Maybe he gets a sore back. Remember Coutinho, his sore back? Never forget that, everyone. We needed him to push for the move. But the reporting from Ornstein and those kind of level of journals was that there must be some sort of indicator from Isak's side for Liverpool to make that approach to Newcastle, because it doesn't seem like something that we would do if we didn't have that encouragement. 120 million was the figure branded. Ekitike would be a cheaper figure. I don't think there's been a set number put on it yet, but he certainly wouldn't be that much. Maybe more around 75 to 80 million will be something where it ends up for him to move. So it was essentially a game of mega chicken, right? If you ever played chicken, this was mega chicken, right? We basically said to Newcastle, okay, hello Newcastle, right? Hello Eddie Howe, hello Jason Tyndall with your tan, right? We want Alexander Isak, okay? Now, if you won't sell him to us, if you decide, tough, we're not selling him, then we are going to buy the lad that you want, Hugo Ekitike, because he wants to come to us. Now, that is never how Liverpool have operated in my life. We have really just slapped our balls on the table here and said, this is how it's going, okay? We are Liverpool. Not to sound like Gary Neville here, saying we are Manchester United. We are Liverpool here. And we've said basically to Newcastle, just you settle down, all right? We're going to decide what goes on here. Anyway, this morning, the news sort of developed even further that we are now in advanced talks with Ekitike. That seems to be the player who's going to come in for us. It's going to be Ekitike who signs for Liverpool. Unless by like some miracle Isak decides all of a sudden he's desperate to leave and something mad happens, but I don't see that happening at this point. So it looks like Ekitike is going to be the one that joins. We'll get into the numbers and more of the detail on those a little bit later on in the show. If you just want that, there'll be a little chapter. If you can skip to that if you'd like. But that's the situation. We also learned that Ekitike in the last 24 hours, he had never said yes to Newcastle, so he'd never accepted the Newcastle move. And he'd also, and this is the best bit, he'd also rejected United in the last 24 hours. Why would anyone want to go to United is the question you'd really have to ask at this moment. They're having the worst transfer window maybe of all time. But he rejected the Manx, and that makes you love this guy straight away if you're a Liverpool fan. And if that doesn't convince you, maybe this will. His name, spelled backwards, is also Ekitike. That's, for people like me, pretty cool. And he's already got the perfect nickname, Hugo Boss. I mean, could that be any more perfect for playing for Liverpool? To sign a guy who we can call Hugo Boss. I'm not sure there is. So there we go. That's the situation. That's what I've been following intently for the last couple days now, and it looks like it's wrapping up. Honestly, it looks like Ekitike is going to sign for Liverpool. This is really exciting. Spending big money again here. Somebody needs to check on John Henry. Is he all right? What is going on with John Henry? Spent. Let's say we sign it for around 70 million. It'll be around 220 million spent on Kirkes Frimpong, Wirtz, and now the striker, Ekitike. It's really exciting. We need a striker badly. We've needed a striker for a long time now. And it feels a little bit like this to me. So if you imagine that, just bear with me here, right? So you're a donkey. Okay, not that I'm calling you lot donkeys. You just are in this situation. You're a donkey, right? And it's like you're a donkey that's been starving for so long. Okay, you're walking down the beach, No one's coming for a ride. No one's giving you any food. You're just a lonely donkey on the beach, right? And that's what it's been like with us, with Nunez. Okay, we've had Nunez. He's been killing us every week. We've been starving, okay, with him up front. Now, then along came somebody to dangle one of the world's best carrots in front of us, okay? We're starving, okay? And here comes not just a good carrot, one of the world's best carrots is being dangled in front of our face. And we're trying to, as fans, we're trying to leg it towards that carrot with a donkey, okay? We're trying to eat that carrot, for God's sake. All right, give me the goddamn carrot. But obviously the carrot in this situation is Isak, for those who aren't following. But that carrot turned out to be too far out of reach, right? So what we did instead as the donkey was settle for a slightly smaller, maybe less tasty, less polished carrot, but we're still getting a full belly. We're still eating. It's still better than starving. And that is kind of the situation with Nunez, Isak and Ekitike. Don't be disappointed that we've ended up with Ekitike if he comes. This is very good news for Liverpool. It can only be a good thing that we're signing a striker. If he's bad, we've spent the money. We'll probably recoup it from selling Nunez. If he's bad, it can't be worse than Darwin. It just can't. So that's how I see this transfer. We could have had Isak, yep, sure. Maybe in the perfect world we ended up with him. But this is a good transfer. And like I said, we'll get into the numbers a little bit later on as well to back that up a bit more. Newcastle are now going after Visser by the looks of things. Although I think, literally as I click record here, I think that United have finally agreed a deal for Mbeumo at 70 million, I think, is what they've agreed. I think, like I said. So I don't know if Brentford will sell Visser now, so Newcastle might be left with nobody, but we'll see. And I thought an interesting thing about this whole saga as well, that I'm not sure I've seen many people speak about, so I thought I'd speak about it on here. For those who don't know, Richard Hughes, who's in charge of our transfers, along with obviously Michael Edwards and the team there, Richard Hughes and Eddie Howe, manager of Newcastle, met actually as teenagers, right, when they were playing for Bournemouth, obviously the club Eddie Howe used to manage and Richard Hughes worked at as a technical director. They actually played together and met as teenagers at Bournemouth, okay, and then they both signed for Portsmouth months apart from each other. This is a long time ago, but they both signed for Portsmouth. And guess who they met at Portsmouth? It was only one man by the name of Michael Edwards, who was working at Portsmouth as a chief analyst at the time. So all three of them involved in this saga met a long time ago at Portsmouth, okay? Even further than that, when Eddie Howe was the manager at Bournemouth, he actually got Hughes out of retirement to come and play for Bournemouth in his last few years of football. And then Hughes, when he retired again the second time, became the technical director. And Eddie Howe and Richard Hughes had a really good relationship and sort of collaborated on a lot of player recruitment at Bournemouth. And that obviously we know Eddie Howe left Bournemouth, ended up at Newcastle, and Richard Hughes stayed on for a little bit longer, but ended up leaving Bournemouth to come to us. So the intertwining nature of this story is really, it goes 20, 25 years back from when these guys were all footballers. And it's really interesting. And you think about how kind of, I don't know, complicated it's been. You would like to think that because of those relationships that the two clubs have with one another, the personnel, we've not damaged any relations with Newcastle. And I am speaking about a certain Anthony Gordon, but that's maybe another day's transfer. Might be later today with the way things are going at the minute, but here we go. So that's the situation. Quickly wrapped up. I hope that makes sense to everyone. But basically, all you need to know is that it looks like Hugo Ekitike, Hugo Boss, is going to be joining Liverpool, and that is exciting, and we should all be buzzing as Liverpool fans to be finally signing a striker, and yet another big money signing, and that's obviously if he ends up coming and we finalise the deal. But as of right now, we can be buzzing about it. So that's what I am. I'm buzzing about it. And so should you be. Don't let anybody, if you read anything online about people complaining about it's not Isak or complaining about him, just don't pay any attention to that. This is a good signing for Liverpool, and that's simply just the fact that there is. Oh, that's all you need to know, in my opinion, anyway. So, okay, if we stop talking about the saga and we actually get into some other numbers behind this transfer, behind the two players, and let's do a direct comparison of Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike. Okay, we'll dive in deep here, so bear with me. If you really like to get into this, then this is the place for you. We're going to get into lots of numbers, and I'll explain them the best I can as I go. But we're going to really focus on directly comparing Alexander Isak, who is widely known as one of the best strikers in the world, with Hugo Ekitike, who might be slightly less well known to most people who are in England anyway. So we'll start off with an easy one. We'll start off with the age of the players. So Isak will turn 26 in September. So entering his prime years, he's still got age on his side, very much so. If you sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal, you've got him till he's about 30, 31. So you'd have him for his prime years. So there's that. Ekitike just turned 23 last month, so he's basically 22, just turned 23 now, so he's got that full year of being 23, whereas Isak will be 26. So he's basically a full 3 years younger than Isak. So he's got age on his side. It's sides of Ekitike. That's a good thing for Ekitike, but it does maybe indicate that he's not quite as refined in his game. But they're the ages. Isak is 6'3". We know, we've seen him play in the league. He's quite tall. Well, he's very tall. He's quite sort of slight in his build, quite silky. Not quite a Crouch, because Crouch was obviously a lot taller, on 6'7", but he's got that sort of skinny, tall build. Ekitike, very similar, 6'2.5". So, but very similar in terms of height and kind of profile in that sense. And some other easy numbers to digest. So Isak last season played 42 times in all competitions for Newcastle. He scored 27 goals and he got 6 assists. Again, that's in all competitions. In the Prem, he played 34 times and he scored 23 goals. So that's his return last year. Now, it's important to remember when I give you these stats and as we go on here, this is Isak playing in the Premier League. So many considered the world's most difficult league, and obviously the league that we're concerned with, given that Ekitike is likely going to be playing for us. So we want the fact that Isak has already proved himself in the Prem is a big plus for him. Ekitike, the German league, where most of the time what you'll see is even the lower clubs don't put their defence as far back as what clubs do in this country, which is the technical term is a low block for that. So that's just a little preface to take when I give you Ekitike's numbers versus Isak's numbers. So Ekitike played 48 games for Frankfurt last year in all competitions. He scored 22 goals and he got 12 assists. In the Bundesliga, which is the German league, 33 games and 15 goals. So slightly less goals than Isak in the league and in all competitions, but the assists that's slightly higher. It is also worth noting that when Isak joined Newcastle, he was he played for Real Sociedad before in Spain, and at age 21, his last full season for Sociedad, he scored 6 goals in 32 La Liga games. So the numbers weren't there, and Ekitike is a year older than Isak was in that season, but you can see Ekitike's numbers much better than Isak's were when he signed for Newcastle, and obviously exploded to the player that he is now. So there's some easy ones to digest. I'm sure you've all heard of goals and assists, but let's get into some more nerdy ones for those who like that kind of thing. So we'll address Isak first, and then Ekitike's numbers will follow second in all of these. So the first stat we're going to look at is it's called non-penalty expected goals per 90. So all these numbers are per 90 minutes, and non-penalty expected goals just essentially means how many goals the player is expected to score that aren't penalties. So what are the chance of that player scoring a goal every game that don't include his penalty stats? So it's a good way to eliminate penalties. Okay, so Isak, per 90 minutes, he has a non-penalty XG of 0.56 per game. So he's expected to score a goal just over every just over every 2 games, basically, which puts him the 86th percentile. This is against Ekitike's 0.6 non-penalty XG per game, which is the 90th percentile. So Ekitike actually generates a higher non-penalty expected goals per game than Isak. It basically means that this could mean he's having more shots, his chance quality is better. It could mean he gets into better positions more. Basically, he is generating higher non-penalty expected goals per 90 minutes. Only slightly. However, the non-penalty goals per 90 minutes, so this is actually how many goals they score that aren't penalties per 90 minutes. So this is conversion of those expected goals. And that's what the key difference is there. And that's what people don't understand when they talk about expected goals. Is it's not saying you have 10 expected goals, you should score 10 goals. It's showing that if you have an expected goals of 10, that's what they think you should have scored. It doesn't mean that you have. You could underperform or overperform your expected goals based on how good of a finisher you are, maybe luck, maybe variance in there. And that's where we look at this. Non-penalty goals per 90 minutes. Isak, 0.62 per 90 minutes. 88th percentile. Ekitike, 0.48. 74th percentile. So the key thing there is Isak outperforms his expected goals slightly. So that's saying he's a better finisher than what they expect him to be. That's what that explains. Ekitike is quite a significant underperform of his non-penalty expected goals. And again, all these stats are compared to strikers in the top 5 leagues over the last year. The percentile numbers. So that's a big criticism of Ekitike, is that his actual goal conversion is lower than his expected goals, which typically means he's a bad finisher. But I wanted to look into that a bit more, so I did a bit of research. Okay, so when you look at that expected goal underperformance, it's easy to say, okay, well, he's another Nunez, right? That's not the case at all, and I'll tell you why. So Ekitike, in his time at Frankfurt, has had 45 big chances, okay? Of those 45 big chances, the expected goals, so the amount of goals they expect him to score from those 45 big chances is 23.5, okay? He's actually scored 25. So he's overperforming there. He's had 165 non-big chances. So this could be like a shot from outside the box. This could be a shot where there's lots of bodies in the way from a tough position, that kind of thing. 165 non-big chances, which have generated non-penalty expected goals of 12.7, and he's scored 5 goals. So that sounds really low, but it's pretty normal for that level of non-big chance conversion, although his is a little low. He doesn't score the chances that are not considered good chances. Okay. Comparing that to Isak, he's had 66 big chances since playing for Newcastle, which have generated 32.9 non-penalty expected goals, and he's scored 32 goals. So he's basically right on line. But he actually underperforms slightly, like a tiny bit, his expected goals from those big chances. Where Isak really excels is that of the 153 non-big chances that he's had, generating a non-penalty expected goals of 11.2, he scored 11 goals. So when he doesn't have a good chance, he is still a really good finisher. That's where Isak excels in his game, where Ekitike doesn't. You can see Ekitike's big chance conversion is actually better than Isak's, but his non-big chance conversion is quite a lot worse, and that's the difference. When you compare this to Darwin Nunez, to give you some more context to these numbers, Darwin, since playing for us, has had 57 big chances, generating a non-penalty XG of 25.3, and he's only scored 17 goals from that, so a really significant underperformance of his XG. He's had 167 non-big chances, generating a non-penalty XG of 14.4. Again, massively underperforming, scoring only 8 goals from that. So you can see both situations there, Nunez is massively underperforming, which is a clear indicator for data nerds that he is a bad finisher. And we've seen that for 3 seasons, just based off what you watch, you can see. So why does Ekitike have such bad conversion rate of non-big chances? And that is simply down to the team he plays in and the way he has to play. Frankfurt, not the strongest team compared to Liverpool, even compared to Newcastle, you would say. And as a result, a lot of Ekitike's chances are made by himself. Perhaps he picks the ball up wide, he dribbles in, and he takes a shot from distance. They're not good quality chances. That's why he's not scoring a lot of goals from those chances. When he does finally get a good chance, he scores at a rate better than what they expect. But the non-big chances are where he struggles, and that is simply down to the team. There may be other factors, sure, but that is the most important factor in that stat. So if anyone says this guy is like Darwin Núñez, they are just wrong. They do not know what they're talking about. I'm sorry, they are not alike in the way they play. The only comparison you could make to that is that they both play striker and they're both tall. That's pretty much it. The data, if you read into it, does not show that they're the same kind of player. So, moving on from that then, the actual shots that they both had, and the data on shots and shots on target. So it shows Isak's shots, he has 3.1 shots a game, which is 79th percentile, and 1.34 of those shots go on target. So a little less than half, which is 85th percentile. So good numbers, as we'd expect. Ekitike has 3.74 shots per game, so slightly more, 93rd percentile, and 1.49 of those shots go on target. So slightly less than half, but the amount of shots on target actually puts him 92nd percentile for shots on target per game. So he's getting a lot of shots on target each game, which is good. Away from shooting, when you look at some of the passing numbers, this is really interesting. So assists and expected assists. So this works similar to expected goals. You've got actual absolute assists, and expected assists is if you set someone up for a chance, how likely do we expect they are to score that chance? So like if you lay the ball across to someone, tap the ball in, that's a high expected assist because it's very likely that player is going to score. If you pass someone the ball on the halfway line and he then dribbles through the whole team and scores, you get an assist, but your expected assist was not high at all because they've just ran through the whole team. That makes sense? Okay. Isak's assists, he averages 0.2 a game, so 77th percentile. It's not bad. 0.14 expected assists per game, 71st percentile. Again, not bad. Pretty good numbers. Ekitike, 0.29 assists per game, 90th percentile, and he gets 0.2 assists per game, 95th percentile. So really good, elite level numbers. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. He's playing in a different league, but these are the facts. These are the numbers. Key passes per game, Isak 1.34, 83rd percentile, Ekitike 1.6, 95th percentile. So overall, you can kind of take away Isak is a good passer. Ekitike may be slightly better in that regard. Maybe his link-up play slightly better. He's bringing others into play more and more effectively than Isak might be. As we know, Isak is a pure finisher, deadly when he gets a chance. So, into maybe a little bit of dribbling now. You've got your take-ons, successful take-ons, and successful take-on percentage. Okay. So Isak averages 2.97 take-ons per game. So this is when he literally has a defender in front of him and he tries to take him on. That's what this stat is recording. 2.97 per game, 89th percentile. Successful take-ons, 1.37, 92nd percentile, which gives him a success rate of 46.2, which is 75th percentile. Isak's a really good dribbler, and we know that about him. He's really elite at dribbling, especially with that tall stature he's got. He's very silky, very good on the ball. He can dribble around players. He's got tricks in his locker. We know that. Okay, so against Ekitike, he actually averages 4.27 take-ons per game for 96th percentile. 1.9 of those are successful. Again, 96th percentile. His success rate, 44.4%, 71st percentile. So slightly worse take-on percentage completed, but the volume that he's taken on leads to that lower number because he's taken on so many more carries per game and successful carries per game than Isak. That's interesting. You got to think, is Ekitike essentially what we're seeing here a bit of an Isak light? And the answer to me, in my head, is yes. this guy is as close in profile to Isak as you can possibly get without being Isak. He is very, very similar in a lot of stats, as we're seeing here. He's maybe just a little younger and more unproven, but as you can see, a lot of the data actually favours him, which is really interesting. Progressive carries, so this means getting the ball and going towards the opposition's goal with it, dribbling at your feet. Isak 2.71, 93rd percentile, and Ekitike 3.04, 96th percentile. So both elite again, elite level numbers. And Ekitike slightly got the edge on him again. A big difference in the numbers is in the aerial win percentage. And this is a huge disparity and something I thought I'd highlight for you all. So Isak, despite being 6'3", only actually wins 32.1% of his headers, of his aerial duels. That could be due to the league. Again, maybe you've got more physical, more imposing centre-backs he's up against in the league. Ekitike, on the other hand, wins 50.3% of his aerial duels, which, compared to strikers amongst Europe's top 5 leagues, is 79th percentile. So he's much more effective at winning his aerial duels than Isak. Much more. And that's really interesting, especially when you consider that we've maybe got a little bit smaller this season as a team. Having Ekitike maybe playing and being able to head corners away, to head set pieces away, that's a big attribute. It really is a big attribute. And a bit more defensive work, interceptions, and your ball recoveries of these two. So interceptions first, ball recoveries second. Isak 0.1 interceptions per game, which puts him 22nd percentile. Ball recoveries 1.8 per game, 29th percentile. He doesn't really defend that much. He runs around, it's not to say he's lazy, covers a lot of ground, he presses well, but he doesn't do all that much defensively in actual physical work. Ekitike, 0.35 interceptions per game for 86th percentile and 2.75 ball recoveries per game, 80th percentile. So the defensive numbers much higher again for Ekitike. Again, it could be due to system, it could be due to style. Maybe Eddie Howe doesn't want Isak running around, wasting his energy on that kind of thing. Maybe it's just the way these two players inherently are. This is just the data. Again, I'm just presenting it to you, so you've got all the numbers and you can make your own assumption of what you think about this transfer. But for me, I am really excited about this transfer. Whether it was Isak or Ekitike, I was excited either way, and it turns out to be Ekitike. I would have loved it to be Isak, of course, as we all would. But I am very excited about our main man, Hugo Boss. So that's a lot of the raw numbers, and I think that kind of paints a good overall picture of the two players. Like I said before, they're very similar. The way they play is very similar. They're both sort of, if you watch them play, they both pass the eye test of being just a good quality footballer. Just little things like the touches they take, small touches to set themselves for the right technique. They look like they've got a little bit of flair, a little bit of elegance to their game. It sort of flows quite naturally despite them being tall players. Whereas when you watch Nunez, for comparison, it looks like everything's a little bit stuck, like it needs oil on his joints, that he's really thinking about what he's got to do in his head. He's not flowing nicely. He's really like, okay, I've got to take this touch and then this touch and then this touch. And that can look a bit jaggedy and a little rigid. These guys are nice and smooth. Similar to how I described Kirkez earlier this year. Both of them are similar in that sense. And I think this is why Newcastle honestly wanted Ekitike, is he's very similar in profile to Isak. So if you have Isak, I mean, you add baby Isak, you're laughing there, really. And to be honest, there's not that many strikers out there that really interest me on the market, really. Arsenal are going to sign Gyökeres. He scored a boatload of goals last season for Sporting. For me, I don't trust that league anymore, the Portuguese league. For all I'm concerned about with strikers over there, the numbers that they get are totally irrelevant to me, because I saw Darwin Núñez rip it up over there. We've seen what happened. So I'm not saying Gyökeres will be bad, but for me, I just don't trust that transfer at all. I like the idea of Ekitike still being younger. He has time to grow with us. And I think when you put him up front and you have Mo Salah, who nearly broke the assist record last year in the Prem, could have done it if a few players had scored a few extra goals. And you get Florian Wirtz, who's basically the world's best playmaker, passing him the ball. Not to mention you've got Gakpo, you've got McAllister, you've got Gravenberch, we've got set pieces, all this type of thing. He is just going to have chances to score goals. It's just, can he finish them? And as I've explained, I do believe that he can. He's obviously going to miss sometimes, but I do believe he can. And he can't be worse than Nunez. He really can't. So, yeah, I'm really excited, as you can probably tell, about this transfer. I think it's going to be really good. And it's just crazy to see us spending so much money. It's great. So, what I thought we'd do to sort of finish off maybe a little bit of something different. If you're not a numbers guy, maybe you're a visual kind of guy. So we're gonna watch a little video on Ekitike, showing some of his highlights, and we'll just watch it and see what we think. I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and we'll just watch along and see kind of what he's all about. So let's get into one. Okay, so we've got the video here. Let's get into it. Yeah, we've got graphics now like this. It's pretty cool. Everybody hide your excitement. Let's get into it. Let's see what he has. I have already watched this, so I know it's a good one. And let's see and I'll talk through what I think he's showing. So here he is. Could be Liverpool's new striker. Here he is. He loves the badge there for Frankfurt. Good for him. Got a couple different haircuts going on. That's always fun. Celebration game. Standard. Right, here we go. Straight away, first clip. You can see, I'm not going to pause all the time, don't worry. I'm not going to pause all the time. But you can see, if we just go back and watch that first clip, you can see he picks the ball up on the edge of the box. Look how smooth this step over is. Just watch and see how smooth the step over is. He's right-footed and he takes it on his left foot, no problem. It looks natural, it looks clean. And the strike with the left foot doesn't go in. It's a decent strike, but at least he kicks it with his weaker foot. Okay. Again, burst of pace. It's just so quick. It looks normal to him. And you'll see that a lot. He's quite silky. Shows a good burst of speed. Again here. Look at the speed. So he can move, he can shift. It's really good to see. A little bit of flair there on the pass. Lovely pass, that one. Let's watch that one again. After watch this burst of speed. Let's get this pass. So you can see, this is where his creativity kind of comes into its own. You see he's got the ball coming towards him, obviously. And he's already seen this player making a run. And just look at the first time ball, the technique he uses, the weight of pass. It looks casual. It's almost effortless. It's really good stuff, and it's what you want to see. And it's just not the type of link-up play that Nunez has offered for us. Look at this, over his head. It's impressive. This is against Spurs in the Europa League. I mean, cutting off the left. Can you finish? No problem. That's obviously against Prem opposition. It was a lovely finish. Again here, cutting in from the left. Little nutmeg. Have you got the finish? Beautiful. Right in the corner. You can see the talent he's got taking on players. Smashing the ball in the net. Quick feet here. Nothing crazy, nothing to really lose your mind about, but just showing some of the footwork. The finish is what you get excited about. Again, off that left-hand side, sort of. Curl it round. Goal. Can you finish? Composure. Round the keeper. In the net. There's that composure there. He's showing the signs for me of a person who will be able to be an elite finisher. Here's a bit of dribbling. Through his legs. You see that the cross in there with the outside of his boot. Again, a bit more playmaking. Nothing too crazy. Taking on his man. Perfect timing on the pass. Okay, can we finish? We can. Little bit of a duel in the corner. Works through. Shows the strength. What's the end product like? Almost gets an assist. I like this one. Let's just go back to that one. Where are we here? I like this one because of the skills he shows, and then he's got that technique to use the outside of his foot as well. Looking for a player coming in. almost gets the assist. Can he score tap-ins? He can. And that's useful because Nunez cannot score tap-ins apparently. How's the head in? There you go. Just beasts his man in the air. Geertrude used to play for Slot. Beasts him in the air, nods it in the back post. Some more footwork there we can see. You can see he's just silky around defenders. Poor finish there, and that's where you see he needs a bit of work. Again, the Trivela cross. Perfect cross there for the assist. Left foot, not afraid to use it. That's excellent as well. You're seeing a lot of link-up play, and people have been saying, could this guy be similar to Firmino for us? I mean, possibly. He could be. I don't see him quite the same as Firmino, but certainly that link-up play is there. You can just see his aerial ability here. He's just beasting players in the air. He's tall, he's aggressive in the air, he's accurate with his headers. It's a good attribute for a striker to have. Getting involved in some tussles. Lovely little touch around the defender there. You know, that he likes that sort of move between his feet. That seems to be a common one that he's using there. You can see just ability to move off the ball, make good runs. Left foot, decent finish. This one's a bit lucky, but gets the goal. Little trip there, beautiful finish. You see he's showing all the signs of someone who has the ability to finish. And you can see the intelligence in his play as well. Look at that layoff there. He's showing a level of intelligence to be able to know how to bring players into play, when to release the ball. That's something that at a young age is a good attribute to have. And I think it'll work really well in our team when you've got the forwards coming in who he can set up. Working his space for his own shot. Power on the shot, accuracy right in the corner. Composure, again, fired in the corner, keeper no chance. Takes it round, left foot, bit of pressing there. Again, the step over, he likes that one onto his left foot. You see the shot, it's from a little bit of a wild sort of position, but, you know, the ability to take it on, the confidence, it's there. Little chop, left foot, no, picks the right man out, misses the shot. Little toe poke. One-on-ones, no problem. I just think he's really got all the attributes. He really does, and if he puts it all together, he's not by any means like the finished article like Isak might be, but he's got all the attributes. You can see the pace, the strength he's got, the running power, and also never had a real injury history at all, which is obviously a good sign as well. As he, you know, we want him on the pitch. Shot from range, he takes a lot of those for Frankfurt, which is again why his XG per shot and underperformance of his XG is quite low. Getting across the front post, see that desire. Again, he scores his tap-ins. How many times have we seen Nunez somehow miss those? I couldn't even tell you. Great cross there on the left foot, and that should be an assist. You just see he's comfortable with his back to goal. He's comfortable driving towards the goal. That's what I pick up from watching these. His movement's good. He gets into positions a lot like this to be able to just tap the ball in, nice and simple. You can see he's always waiting on that last line of defence. Hits the post there. There he is again with another tap in. Free kick. Gets the rebound. He's alert. That's a little ball through to Marmoush, who's at City now. They were a really effective duo. Marmoush though with a brilliant shot. Love a little turn there. Was that Wirtz? I didn't even notice that when I watched it. Is that Wirtz? No, it's Grimaldo. But it's Wirtz's team. Penalty. Little stutter, rolling in the corner. Some of the footwork, little ball rolls. He's got that flair. Technical abilities, top notch. And there we go. So, what do we think? It looks exciting to me. I believe you can obviously watch your own videos, do your own research, but that's kind of what I see when I watch that type of thing is, you know, I notice those things that I talk through. He shows to me all the signs of being able to succeed at Liverpool, especially with the players that will have feeding him. I really do believe that this signing could be a really, really good one for Liverpool. So, with all that said, guys, that kind of wraps everything up, I think, for today. There is a lot more going around at the minute. I'm sure there's probably news that's broke whilst I've been doing this show. There's a lot more going around with Rodrigo, with Diaz, with Anthony Gordon maybe, all these different things. My stance on those is if the news kind of gets a bit heavier, gets a bit more intense, more reputable, then we'll talk about them. Until then, we'll just focus on what's happening, because there's more than enough to sink our teeth into right here, as we've seen today. So if you have enjoyed today's video, like I said, please do drop it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop a comment on if you enjoyed or not. Let me know what you thought was good or what you didn't think was good. If you're listening on the podcast, drop that 5-star review. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I'll be excited. I'll be excited about our new striker at Liverpool, Hugo Ekitike. Hugo, boss. It is boss. I can't wait to see him. So, with all that said, guys, thank you very much for joining me today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.